So what is the story of the Combine? What do you got for me? What is it right now? Well, when you're coming in, you're thinking, all right, I need to write a bunch of columns, articles. Like what interests you or you think is the story of the 2022 Scouting Combine?
Well, as you know, like Rich, like there's two separate tracks here. There's like what's going on in the league in general, and then there's what's happening with the draft. You know, and I think what's going on in the league in general is just I think continued sort of, I guess, I don't even know how, the continuing coming together of what's going to happen at the quarterback position across the league. And so, you know, that's Aaron Rodgers, it's Kyler Murray, it's Russell Wilson, you know, and so, you know, I think that you'd hope that those things crystallize over the next few days. You know, and by the time you leave Indy, which is a week away from the beginning of the league year, it's a better idea of what's going to happen with the biggest names at quarterback. And then, you know, as far as the draft class goes, and this is, you know, going back 6 months of phone calls and talking to people about it, and you know, watching college football. It's just this draft class probably lacks like a Myles Garrett or a Chase Young. Certainly doesn't have a Trevor Lawrence or a Joe Burrow. But you know, like once you get past 10, 15, then all of a sudden I think that most teams see it as having really great value. And the interesting thing about that is, huge part of it is the backlog of players who went back to school because of COVID. And so you have like a pretty large number of players in general in this year's class for teams to sort through. And I think that's going to hit over the next 2 or 3 years. It's going to continue because there are, you know, the quote unquote super seniors, guys who, you know, spent 6 years in school. And then, you know, guys who, because 2020 was such a sideways year, wind up coming back in 21. You know, you got younger players who maybe aren't starting as early because of that. So, you know, there's a good depth in this year's group. And, you know, I think some of the positions that people here have talked about, receiver, edge rusher, obviously your Michigan guy could be number one overall, and offensive tackle. So there's pretty good quality. If there isn't like a Jamar Chase or, you know, again, like a Myles Garrett at the top of the draft of those positions, there's a lot of quality depth at both those spots and at the offensive tackle spot.
So, I mean, what's the consensus going in? And I know this is fraught because it might change going out. In the year that Baker was number one, it was a no doubt about it coming out of the Combine because he lit it up that Saquon Barkley was going to be first overall, and then we all know he wasn't. But what's the general sense coming in who's first overall going in the Combine?
You know what's interesting? So, like, I think, you know, the way most people look at it, like Aiden Hutchinson's got the best, I think is the closest thing to a lock to go in the top two, but things are really fluid with the first overall pick. The consensus I've gotten is that Aiden Hutchinson probably won't make it past the Lions at 2. Just, I mean, and it goes beyond just the natural geographic connection. You know, stylistically, he's a fit for Dan Campbell. Obviously, from a culture standpoint, he's everything that both, you know, Campbell and Brad Holmes want. So, you know, like I think, you know, if you were talking about a sure bet to go in the top 2, I think it's Aiden Hutchinson. You know, I think what's happening at 1 is fluid because there are teams that believe Aiden Hutchinson is the best player in the draft. You know, Kayvon Thibodeau obviously has, you know, considerable upside, so you maybe consider him, you know, up there too. But then there's some really good offensive tackles. And the one name that I think people are going to come out of here talking about is the NC State offensive tackle, Ikem Ekwonu. And he, I'm told, is going to test like Tristan Wirfs did, you know, a couple of years ago, where not only is he going to run a fast 40, but he's going to blow out all the physical testing. And, you know, it's early, but I've already heard the Jaguars connected to him, which makes sense because if you look at the offensive lines that Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl with, in Philadelphia, there were a lot of really athletic linemen, and that's what Ekwonu is. So, you know, I think, you know, my guess would be that the first overall picks would be one of the 4. You know, the 2 tackles, Ekwonu and Evan Neal, and then even one of the 2 pass rushers, Aiden Hutchinson or Kayvon Thibodeau. But I think the first pick's a little bit more fluid, where most people, I think, look at the second pick and they're like, yeah, if Aiden Hutchinson slips by 1, the Lions are taking him at 2.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.